The member for Melton.
Thanks, Acting Speaker, and I rise to contribute to the Workplace Protection Orders Bill 2026, and it's great to be in government and putting up legislation and passing legislation and having a great majority. And one day over there they may get back to government, but hopefully not in my time. Because I'm pleased to talk about this very important legislation. And again, it's a Labor government that's protecting workers. And that's fundamentally what we do. We look after workers. It's interesting to hear the Friends of the Workers over there, which is really interesting. I tell you what, they weren't too friendly to paramedics back in 2014. And you can thank Mr Davis in the other chamber while you're sitting on that side of the chamber here. He wasn't too friendly to paramedics, let me assure you. I think he called them, what did he call them, thugs and something else? That's how he treated their paramedics, so... Anyway, that only went on for about 2 years though, and he's cost you government, that's what he did. Of course, this bill at its heart is about something very simple, and that's keeping people safe in their workplace, and everyone should go to work each day and be safe and not be threatened and abused and intimidated. And I just want to acknowledge the announcement this morning by the Premier and the Police Minister and the Police Commissioner in regard to the additional 150 PSOs that will be patrolling shopping strips and shopping centres, and I think it's a very good announcement, and it just adds to this legislation being passed or being put up and debated. It will add to the protection of people in their workplace, in particular in retail and hospitality, and of course the other area is in the transport area of people being harassed, intimidated, abused, and in some cases spat on in their workplace, and it's just uncalled for. And unfortunately, we have an element in our community that think they have a right to do it. And again, it's a fundamental issue for our community, and it probably stems from what happens in a lot of households. And they extend that back out into the retail area. And of course, we've seen that, people going to work, being threatened, being stalked, being assaulted, sometimes with weapons. And I do want to acknowledge the member for Footscray and her efforts the other week, and unfortunately she's sustained an injury, but I commend her for her efforts for stepping in and trying to help someone that was being abused and assaulted. So, I just want to commend her efforts, and I wish her well with her recovery from her injury. Of course, we know that retail workers can find themselves on the receiving end of this abuse and this aggression by people, and the threats and the intimidation. And some of them are really serious situations, and of course some of it goes to physical violence. And I don't know, why anyone could resort to even thinking of spitting on someone. I remember it happened to me once playing football, and the little bludger that spat on me, I chased him all day. If I got him, I would have killed him, I tell you, but he was too quick. But the good old days of football, there's always an interval, and you always catch up with them when the game stops, so let me tell you. But there's nothing worse than be spat on. No. It's the most insulting thing that can happen, and it's the weakest thing that anyone can do. And to think that someone could go into a retail outlet and spit at a young person that's serving them is just disgraceful. And it's certainly not acceptable in our society, but there are, as I say, there are some people that think that they have a right to do it. Of course, and most of our retail workers, most of them, the majority of them are women, and they're young people. About 1/3 of our retail workers are under 24. And some of it's their first jobs. And to think that they're confronted with some of this violence and threats at their workplace can really damage them for the rest of their lives, and that's shameful. And I've seen many times, and I've actually responded to many cases where people that have worked in retail and hospitality, and even in the transport industry, where they have been abused and assaulted. When I was a paramedic, I responded to a number of cases in regard to violence against people in retail and hospitality. So, they're not good situations to be involved in, and yet some people think this is just normalised behaviour. It's just ridiculous. There's about 800,000 retail crime incidents were reported across Australia in the last year. That's 800,000. And unfortunately, the scale of the problem tells us very clearly that why further action like this bill is needed. And Acting Speaker, our local retail workers are part of the fabric of our community. As I say, they're our partners, they're our kids, they're our, the sons and daughters and relatives that are working in these outlets. And as I said before, in some cases, it's their first job. Of course, we see them at situations like at the grocery stores, the retail outlets, the fast food chains. It might be when you're driving through a McDonald's, and there's been incidents where the young kids behind the counter at McDonald's have had hamburgers or drinks and that thrown back at them, just for whatever reason, who knows. But we see these situations happen. And of course, in some cases, they're working for big companies, or they work for themselves. It might be that their parents own the business. So yeah, it's just a terrible situation. And again, there's the reasons for this bill being put up here. Of course, in my electorate of Melton, it's one of the fastest growing communities within the country, certainly within our state. Of course, as our population grows, so too do the retail centres and the supermarkets and the shopping precincts, and of course the pubs, the coffee shops. The bars, the hardware stores, the kebab shops, the food trucks. We're seeing food trucks pop up everywhere. And again, you can see these situations occur in these particular areas where there's all these food trucks now that are popping up in different communities. Of course, we have people not only at the counters but also behind the scenes in supermarkets where they might be stocking shelves or waiting on tables at restaurants, emptying bins, helping families and keeping businesses operating. And again, we want people to be at work. We want people to have jobs like this and to earn a good wage, and for them to be able to deal with the cost of living and deal with just day-to-day life and be able to buy things for themselves. Of course, this Workplace Protection Orders bill builds upon the work this government has already done and undertaken through the Crimes Amendment, Retail, Fast Food, Hospitality and Transport Workers Harm Act of 2025. And together, these reforms send a very clear message of violence and abuse against workers will not be tolerated and accepted here in Victoria. Of course, many of these workers live locally. And a lot of them are students, a lot of them are our neighbours, they're our friends. Of course, they're as I said before, they're our relatives and our family, and of course they're our future. And we want to support them as much as we can, and we don't want them to be damaged by some of these incidents within the workplace. You don't have to go far to find someone who has had to call security or the police to their workplace because of an incident like this. And they, because they're worried about their safety or they're worried about someone that's stalking them within the business that they work in. And of course, if there is security close by, they obviously assist, in particular at the bigger shopping centres. We see it a lot at some of the bigger shopping centres like Woodgrove Shopping Centre here in Melton, and I know at High Point West is very similar. The response by security and police has been very good, but we shouldn't have people go to work where they have to be provided security just to get through their working day. It should be a safe working place. You just got to wonder, like, if anyone in this chamber, would anyone in this chamber, would we, think about expressing any anger towards anyone in retail and hospitality or in transport? I know sometimes we get frustrated with Uber and taxis and things like that, and when they want to charge you too much just to go a couple of kilometres down the road or something like that. But it's still no excuse to express your anger and violence at times towards those people that are serving our community. I know there's very little time left, but as I say, these are in a lot of cases, our younger generation working in these settings. A lot of them, a majority of them are female. And as I say, a lot of them are our friends or our relatives. And we would expect safety for our kids and our relatives to be safe at work And that's why I think this is such an important bill, and I commend the bill.